Hey, everybody. Welcome to I've Been There, Brother, the show about the things that we face in life we don't talk about, but man, if we did, it could bring us together. My name's Keith. That's William.
Ka-chow.
That's Randall. Who's here to talk to us today. Good morning, guys. How you doing?
We're good.
Good morning.
Randall, we are excited to have you on the show. I want to talk all about you today, but first, let's talk about Will. So, Will, I think you have a new camera angle, and it looks real sharp. You have a good Hulk Hogan mustache going on. Can you give us a 47-second rundown on your situation and how you're doing this week?
This week we're doing very well. You know, there's a lot of chaos going on in the business world for me this week, but we're hitting it in stride. We've had quite a few things going on, but that's all right. We're hitting the gym.
Is that why you brought the mustache back? Did you have to fuck someone up at work and you needed to have a little facial hair to do it?
You know, I don't know. I guess I threw a couple people off with that though, because I had the beard, again, and then all of a sudden I showed up the next day not with the beard, and it was I think it was a little startling for some people, but
keeping them on their toes.
Yeah, and myself. So
all right, good. I love seeing you. Topic at hand: Randall Port. William and I have gotten to be kind of in your lives a little bit through Reliant. Learned a little bit about your story and said, "Dadgum, that guy needs to come on the show because you have a hell of a story." And that's why you're here. Excited to have you and talk, man. Why don't introduce yourself to everyone and let's get the quick story on you. Where are you from?
I'm from Arizona, born and raised. I'm sitting here. I feel like I'm the one that doesn't have a mustache now, since that was a topic this morning. And I also don't know anything about camera angles or any of that. So I'm going to do my best. But
I was going to bring up the mustache thing, so I'm glad that you did.
Sorry that I shave, I guess, once in a while.
So tell us about you. If you could give us a few second overview, who is Randall?
Yeah. Small business owner. Total gym rat. Obviously, that's where I met you guys, is through Reliant. We're some of the longtime people there. And it's amazing. The actual friendships that I've been able to build just from that little group. But my day-to-day life is work most days. I have a little family, my lady and a couple of kids.
Nice.
And that's really it. I keep it pretty simple. Any extra time I do get, I work on myself, my property, whatever. So, no partying, no drugs, no other habits. My only habits are like raising chickens, and I got a couple expensive dogs and horses and stuff like that are
expensive dogs.
That's it. Well, my old dog, he was a free dog, and turns out he's the most expensive free dog that anybody's ever gotten, because he likes to have medical issues. And he's not
like a dog with a new hip.
Yeah, he's not gainfully employed, and so he has no way of supporting himself. And so here I am.
I love like my dog will just sit on the couch, and then you come home, right, and you're fucking tired, and the dog's like, and you're like, yeah, you had a really rough day today, didn't you, Isla?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, he'll do that mid-sentence, and I'm like, am I boring you, dude? Or what's going on here, man?
Yeah.
The long dog sigh.
So, Randall, how old are you?
I'll be 43 next week.
Oh,
I'm gonna have the big 4-3, I guess. Hey, thanks.
Sick.
Yeah, we just got family stuff planned. I'm pretty family centric. It really is like work, gym, family, my property. I mean, that's really it for me. So yep.
So it sounds like you are living the good life right now, right? Married, some kids.
Yep.
Business, but we connected right from your story that we thought was really interesting, right? And you served some time in prison, yeah?
Oh yeah, I did a total of 10 years. between two goes at it, apparently one trip to prison wasn't enough,
Yeah.
so
How long
thought
was
I'd
that
try
first
it
trip?
again. I did 3 years the first time.
Yeah.
3 years the first time. And then I thought I would try it again and see if it's still sucked for a little more than twice that. I went back for 7.
Were you in for the same thing both times?
Oh yeah. So it's kind of my entire criminal history, which can look lengthy on paper, is drug related. Whether it was property crimes where I was stealing stuff to get more drugs, or whether it was a possession of drugs crime or a possession of drugs for sale, whatever it was, always came back to that. I'm a drug addict from way back, since I was a kid, and I never thought I was like inherently a bad person. I always thought like
Yeah.
if I never saw a drug, I wouldn't see jail. Like that's the thing that always brought me there. Um, and yeah, so basically any charge that I had, what forgery, I mean, just stuff that it all comes back to ways and means to get more.
Yeah, so you had mentioned even as a kid, I'm curious, even before we get into prison, who was Randall before prison? Because that was 11 plus years ago now, 10 years total. And then, that's half of your life right there now in the last 20 years. What was the first 20 like?
Oh, yeah, we had a really normal childhood. I don't have that story of like massive abuse or things that you hear a lot out of the drug addict community. I come from a good family. Both parents were present. It's a broken home, a divorced home. But both parents were there, and they're both good folks. They're still in my life today. It's been a conundrum for me all the years. I have a brother, we're 2 years apart. Um, and he had none of the issues. We were raised the same. If we were with mom these years and dad these years, whatever it was, we were always together, and we were always raised the same. And he got none of that stuff, right? I'm sure he's dabbled or tried some stuff, but certainly never got hooked on anything, never committed any crimes around it. He's a career firefighter, two wives,
Two wives.
2 kids and
Lives
a
in my
wife.
state. He lives in my state.
Yeah. He's got 3 wives, and his wife just found out about this if she's watching. No, 2 kids and a wife, and like just he's always just done that kind of straight and narrow thing, and our upbringing was exactly the same. And so that gave me my thoughts on like what a drug addict is, and like are you born with it, or like what happened, what was the difference for us. And so it's a lot of things to think about. But yeah, very normal childhood. Middle working class. We didn't starve. We certainly weren't wealthy, or we don't have generational wealth or any of that stuff, but we weren't hurting for anything. uh but yeah, so very normal childhood. I guess I could say that I always felt like I didn't fit in, even in my own family, and they didn't do anything like that. Wasn't They didn't tell me that, right? Like that was
Mhm.
all up here. That wasn't them making me feel that way. um and to me, that sort of is parallel with drug addicts and drug use, because I would use outside things to try to fit in. And maybe that's how drugs sort of kicked off for me. It gave me a group to belong to, gave me some things in common with other people.
When's
Yeah.
How old were you when you first used drugs?
Oh yeah, that started early, man. I think probably like what they call the gateway stuff, the weed and the alcohol, probably around 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then the harder drugs at about 16, pretty early in high school. Um, yeah, we moved to a kind of a bad, I guess you call it a bad area, and drugs were more rampant there, and they just made it into my life, and it was kind of history from there. Once I hit the hard stuff, I just never quit running until I went to prison.
You remember the first time that you used?
Yeah.
Like, how did
Oh
you
yeah.
Can you tell us about that and how you found yourself like in that situation?
Yeah. So, first time I ever like with weed, right?
Yep.
My friend's mom smoked, and so that was I hadn't really seen drugs. It wasn't in our house. My parents aren't user, nothing like that, right? They're not drinkers. And so my friend's mom smoked. So I guess in his childhood or his life, that was a normalized thing. And so he had stolen some weed from his mom, and we decided we were going to go into the desert, into a tunnel, like kids do, I guess, and smoke weed and act weird. So that's the very first time I ever used anything.
Yeah.
Um,
And you were
yeah,
13 then.
yeah, that was about 13. We were kids. It might even been a little earlier than that, but that was
And you
somewhere in that
and it was
range.
weed before it was like alcohol or something. I feel like
Yeah,
alcohol, at 40, or well, not 40, but 30 years ago is probably more accessible,
right.
but it was
Yeah,
weed.
I had a few friends whose parents like smoked. Actually, one of my
Yeah.
friends' dad sold weed, so he could steal a pretty good handful, and dad would never notice, because he had, to us it was a lot. I don't know if he had a lot or not, but um,
I'm
so
curious from the point of knowing a little bit about you now, kind of from between the three of us, you and I have probably a more conversational relationship than you and Keith. So I've obviously asked about the business side of things. So I'm eager to get into that a little bit. But I'm curious, like in your youth, getting in it so young, whether some substance of sorts, how that maybe, how were you as a student? How were you in school? Because I know how you operate business now and whatnot, and I'm curious how maybe that translates.
yeah, I'm a ADD guy, ADHD guy. So I was never a school person.
Hmm.
I think that different kids need to be educated in different ways. I don't know if you want that part of my soapbox, but we tend to it's like a one size fits all in school, and not all kids or not all people learn the same way. And so I could fail all year long because I wasn't doing the work, and I'd come and like ace the test, right? Like, it wasn't that I wasn't getting the information. It's just I didn't want to sit in my desk and write it down or go home and do my homework. So I did like decent in school. I never like failed any class or got held back or any of that stuff. But I certainly wasn't the best student. Um, and plus, if a young kid with ADD, they don't know what to do with them other than, back in those days, it was just give them, whatever pills were prescribed for that those days. And
Yeah.
I actually remember those wrestling matches because I didn't want to take those either, and they'd force those on me too. Um, so yeah, uh, definitely not a great student, but I think more because I didn't want to do the work more than I didn't understand the information. Because I always tested fine, tested right
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're like 12 or 13 and you smoke weed for the first time out in the
Mm.
desert in a tunnel.
The
And
desert.
like, did it just take off from there? Or, was it like that one time there was this big gap and it was more like quote unquote normal? Or like, was it like a light switch for you where that became a problem or started to ramp up, I should say?
Yeah, I would call it more of a light switch.
Yeah.
I've any progression I've made through that part of my life was always like full speed. I only had offer on, and so
Mm,
um even as a kid, I mean, that really started a habitual using um and hiding it, because like my parents weren't gonna be okay with that. Like, we weren't taking that into the house, and if they found out, we were in
yeah.
big trouble. And so,
Do you
yeah,
think your
I
parents
would.
didn't know? I'm curious on that. Do you think that they didn't know?
I would think, obviously at first they wouldn't know. They probably knew earlier than I think they knew.
Mm,
Um, very different methods of parenting there,
yeah.
where like my dad's a tough love, or was a tough love guy. And if he had known, like, there's a chance I'm getting kicked out of his house.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas my mom is like, moms never want to give up on their babies. And so, um, yeah, a little bit softer, maybe a little bit of enabling there. Um, but yeah, so crazy, right? Are you all right there?
It's something we do. It's
I do
something we
this once an
Randall.
episode. I stare at William and just don't talk and see what he does.
Oh,
You're
Yeah.
allowed to do it too. So, dude, I smoked weed for the first time whenever I was 12 or 13 in my backyard in a tent. I had some friend over, and we were camping out in the backyard because that, we didn't have a desert because we're in central Illinois. And he brought some weed and some aluminum foil and made like an aluminum foil bowl. And yeah, I never liked weed. Not from lack of trying.
yeah. Oh yeah, then you become like the maker of things, and you've got your tin foil or your soda can or whatever.
Soda can,
Or an
yeah.
apple.
Yeah.
Did you ever
An
I mean,
apple.
apple, dude.
Yep. So now you're a mad scientist and you're
Yeah.
that kid and you think you're
Yeah.
Mr. Green Thumb over here.
I didn't try it until I was in was 19, 18, 19. Because I was a pretty cleaned up kid in high school. So
What ultimately became your drug of choice? Did you have a drug of choice that kind of led to the prison?
So it, again, it was there's a kind of a timeline there. It changed as I went.
Yeah.
But the first one was coke and crack. The first like real hard drug that I found. I live in a crack neighborhood.
Okay.
So it's just what was there, when we moved.
how did you get into
And
that? Like, I mean, being the neighborhood is one thing, but were you introduced with a friend? It sounds like a friend was introducing you to other things, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, one more thing, or was it I'm searching for something else?
Yeah, so I guess we'd be 3 or 4 years into my weed career at this point. And so I was a sage old smoker. And then I was at school, at high school, and somebody had some coke. And so after school we went over to the church that's right next to my high school, and that was where I tried that for the first time. Oh, and if you want to know about how quickly it turns on, like that day, I literally went home and scraped up every dollar I could get my hand on, and I called the dude. I'm like, bring as much as you can tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've used it for. I'm an 8-hour user at this point. I don't know anything about it, and I'm like, just get it, all of it. And so that's if you want to know how a drug addict thinks, that's what it was. And I don't for that point, it was a lot, it wasn't some massive amount of drugs, but I certainly was like I was going all in day 2,
Wow. So that was in high school.
That was high school. Yeah.
Were you working during high school? Did you have a job?
Yeah. So I worked at a fast food place.
Okay.
I worked at a fast food place in that kind of crappy neighborhood that we had moved to.
Yeah.
And then everybody else there's doing stuff and selling, and that particular fast food.
Next.
Yeah, that particular fast food place that still exists all these years later has been, more than once they were accused of selling things right out of the drive-through.
Wow.
I remember that there would be people, they have all their stuff up front where they're cooking and putting sandwiches together or whatever. And then the back tables is they're like breaking stuff up and bagging it, the manager's like the dealer, and
Oh man.
and so it wasn't, I was
William.
already in that.
This is really bothering me a little. No, not. I'm
He's
sure
like,
that this has been happening somewhere at some point in our business career. Myself, we've had a store since '95. My family, so I'm not saying it's happening now, but
so you're working there, yeah, you're working there and selling drugs. You're in high school. So if I jump forward a little bit, because I'm just curious, like I could do the mental math here. You would have been probably early 20s whenever you went to prison for the first time.
Yeah, 2005. I think I was 21. I was born in 83. Yeah, so I think I was 21 when I went the first time.
Yep.
So it progressed from there. You go from coke, and then some guy comes and says, "Hey, man, you should try smoking that."
That's what I was going to ask is like, so you're in high school
Yeah.
working at the drug drive-through. You do coke for the first time. I'm really
Yeah.
curious about that time period, right? Of like, okay, we tried something hard and then you're in prison not that many years later.
No.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah,
And
no, I
how
was never
that
one of
progression
those.
went.
I was never one of the guys that got away with anything for very long. Like,
Bad criminal.
yeah, I've run into people, or I don't run into them anymore. I used to run into people that they'd use all day, every day, no contact with the police. Like that's, whatever it was about them, they weren't out there getting in trouble. And for me, I knew as soon as I used anything, the countdown was just on until I got arrested. I mean, there wasn't, might get away with something. It's just, which thing are they going to arrest me for? How many of the things are they going to know about, when's it going to happen? Um, but yeah, so the drug drive through, I met some people there that also lived in the neighborhood, and we're fairly new to the neighborhood. So now these are my friends. I go to their house like on a weekend, a Saturday night or something, because I think they're cool. And it's just a party of, alcohol and drugs. And they're like going in and out of this. It's a trailer. Like, it's like a travel trailer. It's not even like a mobile home. This thing's like a
Yeah.
fifth wheel that they've parked somewhere, and that's their house. They're going in and out of the back room. I don't know what they're doing back there. But it turns out they're now cooking, because remember, I had gotten that big piece for me. They're going back and forth and cooking it a little bit at a time, and they're smoking it back there. So they're like, "Hey, do you want to try that?" And so that's how it progressed to smoking, to crack rocks for me.
Yeah.
Um, and as filthy as coke is, crack's just that much worse. It's more intense. It doesn't last as long, and so you need it more. And
I
you
was
need
going to
more of
ask,
it.
like, I've done cocaine in my life, but I've never smoked it. I've never freebased or done crack. And I was curious, like,
Yeah.
it's pretty dramatically different, I would assume, just from what you see, the impact that it has on people.
Yeah, I mean, at least the impact it had on me, was that you just plain old can't get enough, and it lasts 10 minutes or what. It's like the intense part lasts 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
so you're like bang, 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 and there's never, ever, ever going to be enough. And when you don't have any money, now it's, how do you get some more? And so that's where all the crime comes in. And when we say sell drugs, I want to be clear. I never sold drugs for a profit. I've been charged, they'll
Yep.
charge you with possession for sales. And I mean that. I'm not
Yeah.
like covering up. I mean,
No.
like,
I didn't mean
don't
to paint
know.
it that way either.
Yeah.
Honestly, dude, like, here's what I pictured in my mind, right? I worked at a Taco Bell one time for like 3 months. And so, like, in my mind, you're like, oh, drive through. I'm like, oh, dude, Taco Bell just slinging drugs. Not saying it's
Yeah.
Taco Bell, just that's what in my mind I'm picturing something like that. Not that you were making money, just the whole operation in my mind was kind of funny.
Yeah, if I could scrounge up enough to get more once this much was gone, that was the best I was ever going to do. Like, there was not a profit.
You weren't thinking about making money. You were thinking about making your score.
Well, I probably thought I was. I probably thought I was some drug dealer, but look, I didn't come out with any money from it. And I don't think you run into like retired drug dealers that are like, "Hey, look at all the money I made." I mean, maybe there's a few out there, but your normal, just like in the street user dude, is just barely getting enough to get by. And that's
Yeah.
where I was at. Might have to steal some stuff to make ends meet,
Yeah.
like there was no profit there.
Where'd the crime start?
I guess I don't know what like my first dip into crimes was. But I would think that like shoplifting, you know, um, from the major retailers. Um, uh, for a long time, I would do this thing where I would stack up, and this is old, right? So DVD recorders had like really just come out,
Yeah.
and they were like $400 or $500. And here I am thinking I'm slick, right? I'm going into name the major retailer late at night. I'm stacking like two of these things because they were like the most expensive thing that wasn't locked up. Then I would take it to the garden center or like, one of those back registers. I wouldn't want to go out the front door and I would just run. And, there'd be a guy in the truck out in the parking lot. And so here I am running with this arm loaded because it's always like the oldest lady that's she's not going to chase you, she's just going to scream when you run by her. So I did that a lot. I did that a lot as a younger person. That's how much of an awesome criminal I was. My great idea was to grab stuff and run away, jump in the back of the truck, and we'd be off.
Did you just pawn it or like just sell it to people on the street? Like, what'd you do with it?
Yeah, usually not the pawn shop. So sometime if later on we can talk about my very small experience with pawn shops. But pawn shops, you sign your name on something to sell it.
That's right.
And it's a very small portion. You could get back then, new stuff was 50% cash. And so sometimes we'd even get like lists from the drug dealers. They're like, oh, I want this brand of clothes, or I need a new lawnmower, or whatever it might be. And we'd specifically go shop for them and then run out of the store with whatever they wanted.
Did you ever steal a lawnmower?
No, no.
Okay.
No, that just came to me, but that's pretty funny.
I was like, was it a riding lawnmower or a push mower, right?
I can't even get it in the truck by myself. It just sits in the parking lot and we leave.
Yeah.
Normally electronics, things that are valuable and small enough to boost like that.
Yeah.
Or they used to do a thing. Some of the stores have very loose return policies. And so you would do that number from one in Tucson and you drive up a city away, an hour away, and return it for gift cards or whatever. And then you sell the gift cards. There was a big thing about those receipt scams back I don't remember if it came across if you guys ever saw that, but like even dropping a receipt in the parking lot would give somebody access to a receipt. And so they'd walk in and steal whatever was on your receipt and return it, so just tweaker shit, dude. Just a bunch of nasty, gross tweaker shit.
What's like the silliest thing that like you can't, like you think back to it and you're like, I can't believe I boosted that?
I don't know. I mean, probably the one that I ultimately got in trouble for sticks with me the most. It's just kind of funny because it's so old. Like everything's so old now. And so when I say something like DVD recorders, everybody's like, what the fuck is this guy? This guy was risking his freedom for a DVD recorder. Well, back then they were cool. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. I knew a dude that was in prison for he was doing like armed robberies like that, but he was stealing VCRs. He'd been in there for 30 or something years by then. The dude's doing like 2 32-year sentences run wild because he was violent on top of it. But ultimately he was stealing VCRs and he was going to basically just spend his whole life in prison. And so when I come in there in the early 2000s, I'm like, VCRs, bro? Like that's horrible, So anyway, I guess the thing I ultimately got in trouble for was, do you guys remember Ed Hardy gear?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of Ed Hardy purses that somebody specifically wanted. I went to prison for that.
That's what sent you to prison first time.
Yeah, I went to prison for Ed Hardy purses.
Had you been arrested a lot before that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm from Tucson, which is Pima County. And that's where I kind of started because I even went to kid jail here. Like I was already, those times we were talking about getting in trouble as a kid. I think I sat in there from about 17 and a half up to my 18th birthday, something like that. That's the way I remember it. So all that stuff started early for me, like I saw cops as a kid. And then maybe I stayed out for a year or two. But after, once you're an adult, you started doing adult crimes and now you're going to adult jail. And the way it works is they'll usually give you some chances. They'll give you probation with a suspended sentence, which if there's no change in you in there, say you sit in jail for 3 months waiting to get sentenced, and you dry out, but you didn't get any programming. Like you didn't have a major mindset change in 3 months, especially if you didn't want that. I just want to get out of jail and go commit crimes again, you know? So now you're on probation and committing crimes. And so they're going to stack those charges once you get some new charges. And so, yeah, you go to jail 2, 3, 4 times. Normally, everybody's story is probably a little different,
Yeah.
but a couple of times. And then they're like, look, we ain't playing with you anymore. You're going to go to prison. Um, and so that's how it happened for me. Yeah, I'd actually stolen a car. I broke into one car, stole the keys to the car. The keys to the car next to it were in it. So it made it really easy to take that one. And then I used that as my crack ride for 3 or 4 days, and I'm sure by the time you get to the point that the cops are looking for you, like your name's buzzing with them. I'm sure they've heard your name from 3 and 4 different people.
Yeah.
Like by the time they come to get you, they didn't just randomly pull me over and I happened to be in a stolen car. Like they were looking. It was a felony stop, so you get the helicopter and the dogs and walk back to the sound of my voice and all that kind of stuff, which is any felony stop. That's not. I wasn't particularly dangerous or anything. It's just how they do those. Um, then yeah, so that was when That's the first time that I ended up going to prison. That's the arrest that took me to prison.
Wait, so did you steal a car and
Yeah.
then stole the Ed Hardy purses?
Oh,
Or where? I'm
sorry, the
drawing the
timeline's
timeline.
off. So, car comes before the Ed Hardy. Ed
Oh,
Hardy's a
okay.
different city. We'll get there.
Oh, okay. Got
Ed
it.
Hardy's is the second time in prison. Sorry about that.
Okay. Stolen
So,
car sent you to prison the first time, and you
yeah,
went
so
back
you
one.
get the burglary for breaking into the car to get the keys, and then you get the theft of means of transportation, and so that's 2 different felonies. And when I got stopped, I think I had some stuff on me, and so now we've got a possession or a possession for sales or whatever they decide to hit you with there. Um, and you go, you're in jail now. I'd been on whatever you name the drugs. I'm using them, so my mind's all screwed up. In a lot of ways, jail's a relief, because you'll hear people complain about the food and complain about the conditions, but like you're getting fed or you're eating, and it's really almost probably the best diet that a lot of people have had, even in prison. But it's almost like you're able to recover. Like it's a sigh of relief almost in a weird way. I don't want to like glorify jail. I don't want to glorify any of this ever. I'm just
No,
want to tell my story.
no,
We'll get
100%.
to the part about hope and all that. I just qualifying
Well,
early,
no, hey, look, I think it's important to talk about it,
Mhm.
right? Like the
Yeah.
buildup of, right, this started with just smoking a little weed whenever you were young, and now we're talking about stealing cars and going to prison. And
Yeah.
I think in order to get to the hope, man, you got to talk about all the shit that came
Yeah.
before it.
Yeah. And hopefully somebody's story is similar and they're going through it or they've been
Oh,
through it and
I'm
they don't want
sure
to
that
talk about it.
I'm sure
You
some
know.
people are probably doing stuff right. I'm not saying it's our listeners. I'm not saying it isn't, but I mean, I'm sure in some capacity, people somewhere are dealing with similar things that maybe are on that cusp, and hearing a lot of this is relatable. But then, I mean, they haven't even heard the Randall we know right now
Yeah.
outside of what we're learning, and that in and of itself is going to hold a ton of weight. I am curious in the between your 2 times, how much time transpired between 3 years and 7 years?
About 2 years. All right, so stolen car case gets me 3 years in prison. I in prison is kind of where I found needles.
Mm.
Um, it's just the way to do it in there. You're not going to be, it's just how they do it in there. They want the most bang for their buck. Um, that's when I kind of got introduced to needles. Drugs are readily available in prison, whether it comes in, well, from wherever, right? Visitation or compromised staff. Kind of depends on the security level, like how much movement, how much freedom the people have, how they can
Hmm.
get it. I mean, I've been on yards where people came by the fence line and threw tennis balls stuffed full of stuff right over the fence.
Really?
Which is obviously very scheduled. That somebody was waiting on that. It wasn't just random. It was some dude's girlfriend or whatever. And so that kind of brazen on the lower yards too. Anyway, found needles. And so I basically got out of prison with like 2 days clean the first time. I mean, I basically just used the whole time, which is hopeless already, right? Like I'm never going to make it if I get out strung out like that. Um, I stopped using when I got out. I managed to put together like 18 months clean. I was doing a 12-step program, which I had already been introduced to way back as a kid. My parents didn't know what to do with me. So they're like, go to this meeting. Um, and so I put together like 18 months clean, but I wasn't really like working a program. I wasn't changing anything inside, which is the problem, right? The problem's in here,
Yeah.
um, or up here. The drugs are just a symptom to me of what's going on in here. The drugs are like the product of it. Um, but yeah, so I wasn't really. I was go to meetings, but I was like just trying to see where people were going to go to dinner afterwards, or like what hot girl was going to be at this meeting. Like I wasn't there for the right reasons. But I was at least staying clean. I mean, that's the one thing I did correctly at that point. And then, I got with this girl, and this is a common theme in my life too. When that ended, all my fault, turmoil in my head, and so I went straight back to using, I like right then. And you kind of pick up where you left off. I didn't
I,
start out as that 13-year-old
that's
kid
what I was going to
smoking weed
ask,
again.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was an absolute crack fiend. I'm finding people that are using needles. I'd probably used just needles 6 months or so in prison, and it was mostly meth at that point.
Yep.
And so I had a little introduction to that. And so then I found the tweakers out here, all the needle freaks, and I probably did a hard, nasty 6 months of intravenous meth use, which of course, property crimes again. It's
Yeah.
a cycle, right? We're right back to stealing stuff and ripping people off. And oh, go ahead.
No. Oh, I apologize. No,
Oh,
I was just gonna say, like, those 18 months that you were clean, what were those like? Like, were those enjoyable, or were you
Were you
thinking about
struggling?
using the whole time? Like, and you're just fucking, it was so hard.
yeah, no, it was great. And, um, just living the life, right? Working, had my own little place. Um, you know, you'll talk to some drug addicts that were hopeless. Like in that use, they thought they'd never ever get out. It was just how they were gonna die. And I was never there. Even at my worst, I'm like, there's something, I'm going to quit this someday. And I don't know that that's the same for everybody. Um, but yeah, during that clean time, I mean, that was the best. I gained the most relationships, and it comes into play later again too, further down the line in this story. Um, but yeah, I met some people that I'm still friends with today. So, and they've been clean the whole time. They've got the 20 and 30 years, so they watched me do the epic fail more than once. Um, and they're always there, right? When I decide I want to go back and do the right thing, they're sitting there waiting for you with their arms open.
With that, that 18 months, and you had said about like weed and whatnot, of like, I don't know if you use the term gateway, but almost like that, like that 18 months of sobriety in a way. Like, did you uh, kind of how Keith said how you felt? Like, were you at a point where it's like, man, this is what it's like? Or, I mean, obviously you jumped right back at it, but were you kind of surprised by the feeling that you had?
I don't know. I think at that point, I figured I was going to stay clean. I didn't think I was going to use again. I figured that I was just going to end up with 100 years clean. I was going to die clean, all that stuff. But like I said, I wasn't doing any work in
Mm-hmm.
here. And so so I guess they call it a dry drunk. Like they say, what do you get when you sober up a horse thief? A sober horse thief, and so you have to work on all that other stuff. Um, and I wasn't, I wasn't, I didn't gain any tools. So when it came up and there was that turmoil over that relationship, the first thing I thought was to go get high. I'm going to numb that. Um, because I didn't work at it, right? Like I said, it's an inside job.
Yeah.
Not using is like the day one. Like that's the first thing you got to do. After that, it's about, figuring out like why the drugs were the thing for you, why that was why that was the answer.
And then when you went back the second time,
Yep.
I'm curious about two different things. One, did you go back to the same prison? And then two, um, you hear whether it's through movies or shows or whatever, affiliation while you're in, and safety and things like that that you're worried about. How much of that played a role in your life?
Yeah. So at a certain point, I moved to a different city. It's where my brother was. Um, he had a tree service. I was doing tree work. I went up there to help him. And that was when I was already starting to spin, right? And they didn't know that. But I think I kept it clean for a little while again after that because I was in their house. I had to move to their house. Um, and then when I got some freedom and got my own place, uh, I started hanging out with people again. And I say wrong people, and I don't ever want to blame anybody else. I made choices. I did my stuff. It's just I should have known, right? It was some guys I was working with. They were into some stuff. Got me started drinking, or I got myself started drinking, and then I easily find the tweakers after that. And so here I am, intravenous, using meth again up in this mountain town. Um, and it's smaller, right? And they have like all these police forces. Um, and that's when Ed Hardy came in. I met a lady who was a business owner up there. And I don't know why she was in that kind of circle. I think I met her at a bar. She was not a tweaker, just a barfly type. Um, but yeah, she wanted certain things. When she found out I was boosting stuff, she'd do the thing where she gave me the list, and I'd go get the stuff. And so at some point, she had pinpointed these Ed Hardy bags that were at this small little local boutique. And the only way we could think to get it was that we were gonna smash the front window of this place open in the middle of the night and jump through the window and take all this stuff. And that's exactly, I can talk about it because I got convicted of this. Um, that's exactly what we did. Um, so that's one of the cases that ultimately ended up sending me back to prison in another county. That's Yavapai County. Of course, I'm doing other stuff in between. I had been pulled over and arrested in a different case with a different person. They had been following her. She was buying a lot of drugs, and I was hanging out with her. They had body wire buys on her, all this kind of
Oh,
stuff. And when they went to grab her, I was in the car. Like they weren't after me that time. So now I have that case. I go to jail on that case. I think that's when I bonded out on that one. And so now I'm going to court dates on the outside. So I'm driving myself to court. I'm not in the jail van. And this detective comes up in the parking lot, and he's like, "Hey, we know you're the one that burglarized such and such boutique. I need to take a DNA swab. They swab your mouth for DNA." And the thing is, when you get processed for prison, they swab your mouth. And so I knew right then, if my DNA was on that crime scene, my DNA is already in the system. And so this detective's like lying to me, trying to get me to admit to this. And I'm laughing at him. I start clowning him in front of everybody in the parking lot. I'm like, "You're an idiot. Fuck off. You're lying, right?" And he tried to give some details. He's like, "They saw your truck and they saw you driving it. I wasn't driving it," right? He just had it wrong enough that I knew he was lying. Um, but what that did was made him very focused on me, and he didn't let go of that case. And so he ended up finding the person that was paying me for those items. I don't know how he found her, and she just dumped it all. So I'm back in jail on the case where I got pulled over with the other girl, and I get called downstairs. and the detective's right there in an interview room, the same dude. And I'm like, fuck, Uh,
Yeah.
and he's like, hey, we got it all figured out. You're done. And so at that point, I was looking at like 5 years. I was about to sign for 5 years. Because I figured 5 or less wasn't that bad, which sounds really fucking dumb. But like at my point in my life right then, like 5 years, I'm like, all right, I think that's a good deal. Um, and so they call it a page two when you pick up extra charges when you're already on some charges. And so he page two'd me. Um, and so the next pleas that we're getting were for like no less than 8, no less than 7. I'm like, ugh. But yeah, clowning that detective, he never let go. And it had to have been like 6 months later. But I was locked up. Like I was a captive audience and I was his focus.
Do you think that
Um,
how you treated that detective took you from 5 to 7?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
that he would have given up anyways, but I definitely ensured
You did.
that
Yeah. You
he,
made sure that you got more.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever happened
And
to that woman? So she confessed it all. Anything ever happened to her?
no, I'm sure she
No.
got some sort of deal on
Yeah.
it by giving all the details. And I've never gone back there. I mean, I've gone back to that city. I do things in that city, but I don't look for those. I've never seen any of them ever again.
Yeah.
The co-defendant that they had the wire buys on, she got like 8 years, and she got out right after me, and she's done great. I don't really talk
That's
to
good.
her much, but she is on my social media, so I check once in a while, and
Yeah.
she's just kicking ass, right?
Yeah. Mm.
Um, that's kind of my rule. If people have been out for at least like 5 years and you're doing good, I'll talk to you. And it's not personal, but like if you're not doing the right thing, if I
Yeah.
don't care if we were best friends before, like you're not
Yeah.
part of my life. But yeah, so she took 8 years and got out right after me and just hit the ground running, and she's doing amazingly. So
That's good. That's good. So okay, so you get picked up on those charges, go through page two. Did I say that right? I'm trying
yeah,
to use the lingo here.
yeah, good
Right,
job.
you go back to prison, and we know that. Right, you go back, you serve 7 years. What was that
Yep.
stint like? What transformations did you go through during that time?
Yeah, so I think after I knew I was gonna get more than 5, I just got like the fuck it's, right? And who cares, right? Like who cares how I do my time? Um, and so I just was gonna get high the whole time, basically, pass the time. Um, and I did that for a pretty big part of it, you know. Um, if you this is all Arizona. I don't know how all prisons work. Generally, West Coast stuff is similar and East Coast stuff is very different, but just I only speak from Arizona. Um, if you have more than 5 to do, you can't be on a minimum custody. And so here we have 2, 3, 4, 5, and special management, which is that super lockdown that you see on the movies.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started at a level 3. And you can get, if you get in trouble, you get a dirty UA or you get caught with something you shouldn't have. Then
What's a
they add
UA?
point,
Urine analysis?
urinalysis,
Okay. Yep.
urinalysis. Yep. Or whatever. They add points to your score, and once your score gets to a certain point, you get bumped up a custody level. And so I did that too, right? So I started on a level 3, which is the lowest place, and I'd been on a 3 before the first time. The lowest place that a lifer can go. So once you hit the 3 yards, then you start running into the 25 to lifers or the anybody that has more than 5 left. And so some of those can get pretty nasty. You asked about affiliations and gangs and stuff like that. All that stuff is there. Um, you're not required to join anything at most custody levels, and it depends on whoever the dude running the yard is too. Some of them are a lot more militant, a lot more strict. And as you get higher in custody, it's just more militant and strict anyways. So threes normally aren't too bad. There's a couple in the state that are known to be very violent, and they wear that badge, right? I think that I was old enough. You run into these people that get adult sentences when they're 16, right? These are children, and they're still very malleable. They're not developed all the way. And so when those prison tough guys can get a hold of somebody like that, those guys end up being kind of the worst, most violent, like hopeless, right? I keep using that word
Yeah.
hope, but I think I was lucky in that I was 21. I've always been just kind of a free thinker. I don't really tend to follow a group. My first reaction to a group is usually fuck off, whatever name the group, whether it's in my life today or whatever. And I'm not a tough guy anyways. I'm not Mr. I want to fight everybody all the time. I'm not like trying to show how cool I am. I don't get any like I don't get a sense of pride or a sense of any of
Uh-huh.
that from having gone to prison. You see a lot of the interviewer, people being interviewed about prison, and it seems like they're very proud of it, like it gives them some sort of status. And I'm like, dude, you were useless while you were there. What if your mom needed something while you were there? What if your
Yeah.
kids needed something while you were there? You were fucking useless. And for you to glorify that, I'm just not that person.
Man,
Um,
what was it like with your parents? Like through that first
I'm gonna
prison
cry when we
sentence
talk
and
about my mom.
in the lead up and
Yeah, I'm gonna cry when we get there. Uh, we can do that now. Um, Mom just wants her babies to be all right. And so I tell people that she did 10 years with me, you know, never committed a crime in her life. She doesn't come from the world at all. I mean, neither did I really, but I had spent a lot of time learning about it, right? By
yeah.
being in it. And so she's just watching her middle kid spiral and do all kinds of stuff that she doesn't understand, and get myself in a lot of trouble, and probably in some near death experiences. And she would enable me all the time, and just from a unconditional love. She didn't mean any harm by it. um but I knew for a fact my mom would never disown me, which didn't help, right? Because then I could do whatever I wanted,
No,
and I knew
you took advantage
where
of it.
100%. Drug addicts are manipulators. That's like the key, right? Master manipulators. Whereas I knew, like, my brother, had I come to his house with some bullshit, he's gonna just kick me out and get a hold of me when you're doing better. It, Same with my dad, my sister, my cousins, any of that. But my mom, man, she would never ever let. She wrote me every week for the 10 fucking years, dude. Whereas I'd hear from my dad every few months, and it's not
Yeah.
less love; it's a different kind of love. You know.
How did that impact you while you were in prison? Did
Um,
it impact you? Right? Like, are you
Not
feeling all those emotions now, right? Looking back, or like, what was that like in the moment?
you got to have some support. It's real easy to feel forgotten about in there, and for the most part, you are. If you're my friend and you go to prison for 8 years, like, I got to go about my life, and so it's real easy to feel forgotten about in there. And so a letter a week from my mom was like gold. Um, a letter every couple of months from my dad, man, that was a cherished item. People don't even think about the mail anymore, but I promise you, there's prisoners right now just like waiting for mail call in case they get a card from their fucking sister, you know? Um, yeah, so definitely, family support has always been, I guess, my biggest asset. And I think it's why I got out of it, because getting out of it isn't normal. The recidivism rate, even I have recidivism, I went twice. But the people that do the revolving door forever, you'll notice that they don't have support. They're not going to get out to loving arms. They're not going to have family. And so I think that that's probably the thing that like saved me, or at least like kept me going.
I I don't know if you touched on it. You mentioned your dad when we last spoke, but I'm assuming, is your mom still around?
Yeah, I still
And
have both parents.
and how has that been? You know, I think I often talk about not trying to make up for my past in a way, but without even thinking about it, I think I subconsciously do that in my day to day sometimes, especially with my sons. But I'm curious, you know, like, do you find yourself doing that? Maybe not, you know, like you should, but you know, do you think that affects your relationships now with your parents?
Oh, absolutely. You know, in 12 step, they call it making amends. And so you kind of make this list of the people you harmed, whether it was those stores that I boosted from or, you know, whatever it might be. And obviously, family, if you victimized your family, which I did, stole from them, um, you know, they make the list and they're very high on the list. And then you try to find a way to make it up to them. And you know, property crimes, it's going to be about paying back the property, right? Like I stole $1,000 worth of stuff from you. Here's $1,000. Are we, you know, are we good? You know, with your family, and this is my whole family, they just want you to do well. They call it a living amends. You know, my mom doesn't care about the stuff I took from her.
Mm.
I do. I pay her phone bill. Like I've made those types of amends too. But she just wants to know that I'm safe and like I'm clean and I'm living a product and I'm happy, right? That's all she gives a shit about. And so for her, and like I said, this really applies to the whole family. It's a living amends. You know, that's the amends that I can make is when my mom dies, she'll know that I'm going to be all right. You know, and that you know that's really that's the kicker for me.
Yeah.
She knows I'm happy and I'm successful. I don't go to jail anymore, you
Yeah.
know. Um that's it, right? Like that's the payoff for me.
Where did the change happen in that second
Oh,
step?
yeah. So I used a majority of that 7 years. It was 6 years, 11 months or something. Um
You used 6 years and 11 months out of the 7
no,
years?
no, that's how much I did on the seven.
Oh,
I did
okay.
almost an exact
Okay.
because normally you get sentenced to 7 years, and then you get 85% off for good time. You get some back time if you were in jail before, blah, blah, blah. Um, because of my plea agreement, they took all my back time and it made it to where I did basically seven on a seven. So yeah, I used a lot of that sentence. It escalated. I went higher and higher in custody because you know you keep getting if you're using and you drop a dirty UA, they're gonna UA you again in a month because they know what you're doing. And you might get caught with some stuff. I mean, I've had to run from the cops on the prison yard, which means you can't get away, right? You're in
No.
offense. But I was trying to run away and like flush things that I had in my pockets, you know, paraphernalia, that type of stuff. Um, yeah, I got into a high speed chase on a prison yard with a cop. Uh,
How do you get into a
stuff.
high-speed chase on a prison yard?
I was doing my morning thing, you know, getting right for the day or whatever. And this cop knew what I was up to. Like you're acting weird, right? Like anybody who's looking at it from the outside is like, oh, that guy's using, that guy's not. Like it's easy, right? You don't know that while you're the guy, but to them it's completely obvious. And one day he walked into the building I was in and I was doing my thing and he looked right at me and he knew I was doing it before he ever saw it, just the way I was sitting at my desk. And he came right at me and he's like, "Hey man, step out," you know? And I was like, "Let's not do this today, bro," you know? And he's like, "Oh yeah, 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 you got to step out." And I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go." And so I just grabbed everything I could off the table and I ran past him through the door out the building door. So now I'm on the yard. This was a 2 yard, and so it's kind of open. You get a lot of freedom. You're only locked up for count time and at night. You know, you can go in and out as you want during the day. And I just bolted out the door, and I'm just trying to get to other buildings and get stuff flushed. And I did a pretty good job of that. And so eventually, you just have to give up because, like I said, you're not going anywhere.
Just
I
adult
mean,
Tay.
Yeah, dude. It's a cage. It's not like you're gonna escape and they're never gonna know. Plus he knew my name. Like, this wasn't a thing I was gonna get away. I was just trying to get off all that stuff that I had before he caught me with it. Um, but either way, even if he didn't catch me with something, that's a trip to the hole. That's a higher custody level. I mean, that's, a stupid thing to do. Um, so yeah, that was mid sentence or so, somewhere in the middle there of my second term. Um, but
Was that close to the moment then? Like was there a significant moment that shifted where it was like, man, time to be Randall?
yeah, no, I still went crazy for a couple of years after that. That wasn't the thing that changed me. Um, I think the biggest thing that changed my mind is when I started to get closer to the gate. I had 18 months left, and I got moved from a medium yard to a minimum yard, and I was strung out over here. The guy that I was getting it from, knew I was going. He gave me some to take with me. I took it with me, and it lasted for like 3 days, and then now I'm sick. Right, I've got to either get back in the game and meet the people there and figure out who's who and who's doing what, or just go through the sickness and ride it out. In this particular 2 yard, when you're new there, you start on, there are these 10-man tents. And so now we're in the desert in a fucking tent. I'm kicking heroin. Um, Nasty, right? Doing the gator roll, like all this, can't sleep, weird stuff coming out of your body. I mean, it's just the night sweats, the cold, hot. Um, and for whatever reason, at that moment, I just decided I wasn't getting back in it. And I don't really, other than I knew if I was too close to the gate and strung out, I had no chance after that. If I got out strung out this time, I'm just going to start running as soon as I hit the streets. And once you have priors like I have, you're not getting any less than double digits for like anything, right? They start to allege your priors. And so um I think it was just that. And the new place kind of helped. Of course, I knew people. I could have, I could have got there. It's not hard.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I decided I didn't want to go through that. And so I laid in that tent. I kicked. I was clean at that point. And they moved me out of the new guy tents to this third part of the yard. There's three parts to this particular yard. One of them is an old female yard that they had changed over. And so it was actually across the street. This is the weirdest shit, right? You go to this gate, you have to buzz the buzzer, you have to wait for a cop to escort you, but they open the gate from the control center. You walk outside. You're not in a prison yard anymore. You are outside. There's cars on the street. You walk across the street, buzz into the other side. It's the weirdest damn thing. Like you're not in prison for a minute while it takes you to wait that it takes you to cross this street. And because of that barrier, there was a big difference in that yard and these yards. This yard was like all the people that were like the maintenance people. They're working in prison, you can get, sometimes some places have like these street jobs where inmates will run, like there's a big business in Arizona called Hickman's Egg Ranch, right? They're in all the grocery stores, this massive egg producer. Well, they use inmate workers. And so these guys would leave prison every day, go to Hickman's, work their egg facilities, and come back. And so the guys across the street, they weren't doing drugs. They had less than 5 years. They were just doing their time. They were just waiting to get out. They were stacking money because they were making $2 an hour instead of 10 cents an hour at these real jobs. And so it was just like the perfect storm of like, if I don't stop now, I'm going to get out strung out, the street barrier, and then this group of guys that weren't using anything, some of whom became my very, very good friends. And I got to tell you, the people from that group that have gotten out have done exponentially better than like the median number must be for recidivism. And it's like the best study on programming. They're not great jobs, they're labor jobs. You see the inmates out there like weed whacking on the
Mm-hmm.
side of the highway, stuff like that. Those guys stay out longer, or they're more likely to make it.
Really?
Um, yeah, dude, like that. I probably have 15 people that I knew from that part of that last year and a half on my social media that are out right now doing pretty good. And I probably don't have three from the fucking 8.5 years before that. I mean, it's a
So
massive,
is it a
massive change.
choice whenever you're in prison, like to go do that or not do that?
Sort of, not really. You have to
Okay,
have a certain level of clearance.
got it.
If you have any institutional score, any institutional issues of like, I don't even know how you get there, but like if you started institutional trouble or you had to walk off from a job like that or something, you're not going to get classified for that. So
Hmm.
those guys that get those jobs have the highest level, and they have less than 5 years. And so there's a couple of requirements. Most people want those jobs. They're the firefighters, the ones that go out and do the wildland crews. And like I said, they make $1, $2 an hour around the clock. So it's a great deal for them. And 50% of it they can't touch. So some guys get out, if they do that their whole time, they get out with a check, $15,000, $20,000. They have a good start.
Hmm.
Um, you're basically required to work if it's on a minimum yard, whether you're a rock raker, and those guys literally are 10 cents an hour. But if you're doing the right thing and you can get that clearance, people love those jobs. They want those jobs. You're working at the motor pool. I only had a mid-level, it's A, B, or C clearance. C clearance gets you out the gate. Mine was a B clearance. And so I worked at a different complex, but I was always in a prison. I wasn't out on the roads, any of that stuff. I worked at motor pool at a lockdown complex. So there was another prison complex right up the street. The people there weren't allowed to come out. They were either the special management people, the basically what you would call, I guess, a level 6, the super max, and they weren't allowed out of their cells ever, or they were inmates that were having to hide from other inmates for whatever reason. They weren't allowed out on those out of their yards. And so they have to have people come in to work the kitchens. They have to have people come in to work the wastewater facility. People come in to work the motor pool, and I was on motor pool. And like I said, some of my best friends. Because as horrible as prison is, you're gonna have to make the best of it. Like, you're there. I wouldn't tell you that like my entire time in prison was horrible every second of it. I mean, it wasn't ideal. I'd much rather be out here in my boring 3-part life, but um
I wouldn't say it's
you're
boring.
gonna
It sounds like you've got it pretty well. It sounds like you're in a point of establishment. But something else that comes to mind for me is from the beginning to now, where we're at, is something Keith and I talk about frequently. Whether it's us coaching, being a product of our environment in a way. You show me your circle, you show me your future. And I think
yeah.
you talk about where you lived and finding those people quickly when you needed something. Now you're in an environment where these people are working, they're changing their lives, and that was basically like the jump starter to Randall realizing, again, you got a taste of your 18 months of clarity or whatever it was, that time period in between where you were clean, but you didn't really work on you. Now you're seeing it again. And I'm something for me that I think is very clear with all of us. You become very much what you surround yourself with. And I would like to kind of jump into that with now where you're at, you've gotten clean, you're out of jail or out of prison. And when did it become Randall, the business owner, Randall, the figure that now you take care of animals, you have property, you have business, you have family, you have this environment that you've created that you are a support system for that now instead of being the one searching for support.
Yeah. Yeah, so I ended up being as that I stopped using. That means I stopped getting in trouble in prison. I ended up earning 3 months of my good time back. And so that 18 months stretched to 15. I got out sooner than I thought I would. I got my visits back. They had taken my visits. You couldn't be trusted with visits if you were a drug person, right? And so I got out with 15 months clean, and I had a background in 12 step. And so I hadn't heard from anybody in that group basically the
I
whole
want to ask one
time.
thing really quick. I'm sorry to interrupt. You had said you got your visits back. That makes me think of your mom. Did your mom ever visit you in prison?
All the time when she could. I lost them for 3 years, dude.
Yeah.
I took that from her for 3 years by causing trouble institutionally. But yeah, anytime she could. And the thing about prison complexes is that they're not really in major cities. There is one here in Tucson, but it's on the outskirts. But they're in these tiny little desert towns. They're all over the state. There's like 12 or 15 of them, with 2 to 4 or 5 yards on them each. And so I did a lot of time in like Yuma, which is 3 4 hour drive, and she would show up. I did a bunch of time in Douglas, probably a 2 hour drive. She would show up, whenever she could. But I lost them for 3 years. I ended up getting them back towards the end there.
Hmm.
Yeah, she was always there. She's still there. She's still always there. She's there today. But yeah, so I had a background in 12 step. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I got 15 months clean without 12 step. I probably don't need it. And the people from 12 step, they knew when I was getting out. Even though I hadn't heard from them, they were waiting, and they weren't letting me do it. They were like, yeah, we're gonna come pick you up, because I was on the fence. I was like, well, maybe I don't need that in my life. And they're like, you need it. We're gonna pick you up. And they wouldn't let it go. And these are my old friends, the good friends, not those old friends. And they got me back involved in that. And so ever since I got out, and I'm grateful that they did, right? Because that's that complacency thing of like, thought you didn't need it, but oops, you did, like. And so I've worked a much more complete, nobody works that program perfectly. Um, but I've been able to do that little bit of work on myself and like find out my shortcomings and find out my character defects and work with other addicts and have that network of people. I hadn't heard from anybody in 8 years. They were calling me when I got out. Let's go. So I got lucky or not lucky, but it was a good thing that was there. Um, and as far as work goes, I had some skills as a tree worker. That's what I was doing in between there. And so I took a job at a tree service, and I was just a low guy. I was pretty new. I had a couple years experience, but not much. And so I was dragging stuff to the chipper. But my work ethic was like through the roof. I've always had this chip on my shoulder of I have a 10-year gap in my life. Like where everybody else was progressing, I was stagnant for 10 fucking years. I'm fighting from 10 years behind. And that's what keeps me like, you probably see, I don't stop, right? Like I don't have an off
Yeah.
button. Like if I'm awake, some progress is happening in my life. I probably have 2 hours of work done before most people even wake up. Like it's 3 a.m. I'm emailing or whatever. It's that's how I operate. And so I was doing side work to make ends meet because being the bottom person on that totem pole was barely a livable wage. And so I did side work for about 5 years, and I built my customer base that way. And so when we decided that we were going to start our own business, I have a business partner. There's a second person on the LLC.
Okay.
We already had a lot of work. I had people I'd been working for 5 years. So it wasn't like just a dry jump into nothing. It was a fairly easy transition. And back then the two of us could manage it. I could do the quotes, we could do the field work, or we'd hire a friend for cash or whatever. But I always prioritized education. For some reason, trees just make sense to me. I don't know. I'm not smart. I didn't go to college. These things it's like a savant or something. It's like they just add up to me and they make sense. And I'm highly competitive. And to me, business is competition. And so I went after all the certifications, all the qualifications, all the licensing. And a lot of that's about competition, right? If we're going for the same job and I'm more qualified than you lost. That's how I look at my business. It just happens to be something that I love. Like I'm really lucky to get paid for something I'm actually passionate about. And so in the 6.5 years, we went from we've got about 10x sales from our first. Well, no, about maybe less, maybe 6 or 8x sales um, from our first partial year to what we're projected to do in this one.
Hmm.
Um, eh, m- Multiple times of growth. And we're sitting at 8 people right now.
I was just
That's
going to
eight
ask.
families.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, our market's small. Tucson's 1 million people. All surrounding areas, Tucson. I'm not in Phoenix where there's 7 million and you can build a business doing anything easily. Our market's small, and to have in 6.5 years, we've basically cornered the residential market. Um, because that's what I prefer to do. We're licensed commercially, but it's not the quality work, and so I can do better work person to person talking to somebody that really cares about their trees, and so we make more headway there. But yeah, we have, like I said, 8 families, and so if you add the kids in there, there's 20 people eating off of that plate. And I take it very personally because I'm the guy that fills up the calendar, right? I'm the guy that gets the work, and I take it very personally that they're going to have that work when they expect it, because tree work can be really seasonal. Um, but there's never ever been a week ever when the 40 hours for all the employees was not available. We've never had to tell them, hey, we just don't have the work this week. And that's on my shoulders. And I take it, like, again, very seriously. And I'm really proud of that, uh, kind of a monster we didn't mean to create. It's been way more work than we expected. But I mean, I guess that's what we asked for. When I complain about the phone being so busy, my guys are like, dude, if it stops ringing, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. Have you found any
Um,
challenges building the business and having been to prison before? Has that impacted your ability to do that?
no, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff with licensing, you have to disclose all the felony, for the contractor's license, the state stuff. You have to disclose all that, so it takes a little longer. But as far as I'm very open about who I am, because I've always just figured, like, and I've only been judged like 3 times ever. Like, it's been a really, even just being as open as I am about. I put it on my social media once a year. This same kind of message that we're trying to do today, just for people if there's somebody struggling and reading it. But yeah, if you're gonna judge me by my past, then I didn't want you in my life anyways. Like, please weed yourself out. I don't care to impress you. I'm a fiercely independent person. I don't need anybody for anything. I want certain people, right? I want people in my life. I want friends. I want family. But, like, I don't need anybody to like me. I don't need anybody to approve of me. Um, and and it's like I said, very, very, very few times have I gotten negative feedback. And it's kind of, even when somebody comes at me in that way, it's like the rest of them, like, jump in and, like, he's a great guy. And so no pushback really at all in the business, I don't think.
Have you done any work with current prisoners or people who are getting out of prison?
Yeah, so I have gone back and shared my story in um a minimum yard. Again, the guys, they're coming out, right?
Yeah.
They have less than 5 years left. I think the unit that I went to was a veterans unit. Even they had like a special unit for vets. It's pretty sad the amount of crossover there is there, the amount of veterans that are in prison. Um, and I don't know if they just, prison's almost military like, right? Like, we eat here and we eat now. We can use about, it's almost like this highly regimented thing. And a lot of the cops are ex-military. A lot of the inmates are ex-military. But yeah, I have gone back, told my story, and I try to always do it with a message of hope. I just, like, you can do this. I'm not special. I didn't get any handouts. I just got out and broke my fucking back, and
I
And
was
so
going to
that's
ask what your message was. Yeah, like obviously it's this amazing story. You've completely turned your life around. You're doing things that a lot of people who haven't been to prison don't do. Like, what is your advice to people who are getting ready to come out?
I just want them to know that it's possible. There's like I said, family's the biggest thing for me. You run into some of these people don't have family, and they're gonna get out and they're gonna go to a halfway house and they're gonna owe that halfway house money the second they get there. They haven't even gone on a job search yet, and so they can start to really feel behind the eight ball like the second they hit the street, and they're likely to like return back to what they know. Oh, I don't understand this debt that I have to you, but I understand this crack pipe and this hooker. That's comfortable for me, and so it's an easy way to just go astray. But I just want people to know that they absolutely can do it. Like I said, no, I don't come from any like material anything, right? Nobody gave me the money to start my business, none of that kind of stuff. We just worked hard. And I guess my specialty has been networking. Um, as business people yourselves, the true core of business to me is relationships, and who you know, and networking. We offer a tree service, but that's just the end product. How do I get there? So yeah, if you're willing to work your ass off and like work on yourself, you can absolutely do it. I'm not special in any way. I just decided I wasn't going to go back to prison anymore. you know?
Yeah. You're talking about family. I don't know, and we don't have to get into it, but I'm curious when the missus came into play, and the children, which I know that you take a great pride in from our conversation we had in person the one time when I got to meet her. But yeah, if you want to talk towards that, because I know that that's been another big shift, like another step in your life to have family that is your own.
Yeah. So like, I was 41 when I met Ava, and I guess this was another part of my life where I was like, well, I'm just not that guy. I'm not meant to get married. I'm not meant to like have a permanent partner like that. And I just was like, and I was cool with that. It wasn't like a negative thing. It was like gonna be me and my dog, and we were gonna grow fruit in my backyard, and like that's how we were gonna finish our life, Like it wasn't I didn't feel bad about it. But I've heard somebody say, through your life, people are like, yeah, when you meet somebody, you're just gonna know, right? And I never knew what that meant until I met her, right? I meet her and I completely understand that sentence now. Because for us, things happened quickly, and I'm not a quick person. Like I'm a like, well, hold on, slow down. I've just learned to not rush into anything. That's when I
When you
make
did rush into
mistakes.
things, it led to some possible changes that
Well, they call it first thought wrong disease. Like the first thing I think is the wrong fucking answer. So I need to sit back and not react. Yes, not react. We want to act, not react. But with Ava, man, it just when I first saw her, I was like, and this is, I didn't know her, none of that stuff. I'm like, God, dude, I hope there's one of those for me one day when when I finally get my own shit figured out. And then slowly she would just like, hey, do you want to run with me? And I'm like, no, because you're trouble, like, no, I'm not doing this. But she wouldn't
Trouble.
stop. She chased me down. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it just worked out, man. And I don't know. I don't really know why. I guess it's just, we were just meant to be. The kids are not my biological kids. I'm stepdad. And I'm in love with them too. They are my kids. They call me dad, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I think it worked out better. The truth is I couldn't take care of my own life. Like like I wouldn't be doing kids any favors by having kids 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? I would have left them out here while I was in prison, or I was whatever. And so I think maybe it's just fate, or it's just like the universe waited for me, cuz I'm the best version of me that I've ever been as I come into their life. And
That's awesome.
like yeah, it means a lot.
I say it all the time. Time and chance happen to all, and I've I think Keith and I can both relate to our own stories, to our own situations that have led us to where we are. We've all got, and I think this goes to show we're three different men who have three different trajectories of life that have all come to a similar mindset and capability, that we're all on different walks of what we're doing in our life right now, and yet so much resemblance in what we do and how we think and how we process. And I feel like I learn something every week from Keith. I'm now, hearing you, Randall, and I know our listeners, in talking with many of them. I actually got messages this morning about our episode that came out, being that we're recording on Friday here now, but that came out this morning in regards to our episode. And it's just the relatability that people just don't talk about, and the perspective that can be shared that could make a difference, that made a difference for all of us on this call, that you just don't think about until you start hearing someone say it, and you're like, man, I know exactly what he's talking about, or I've experienced that. And I think, though, hearing you talk about your family, and then your stepdaughters, your daughters, I've seen how
Son
you
and
act,
daughter. There's one of each.
son and daughter,
Yeah, yeah.
how you act around them. I know, as a father, Keith as a father, and a lot of our conversations we've had, man, what a life we've struggled through at times to be in a position that we're in now, and how much we're grateful to be fathers, and what a blessing that is to be able to even say that we get that opportunity to try to right the ship without really righting the ship, but just show them a path.
So we've gotten to present day. What's the
Yeah.
future hold for you, Randall? What's next?
Oh, man, that's one I've been really kind of struggling with, to be honest with you. Quite honestly, I normally just let the ADD take over, and like I don't know what's going to happen later today. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess long-term goals for me are obviously to be mostly retired from the business. I don't think that a small business person ever fully retires, at least not the ground floor ones. The people that built it, I think, are going to have their hands in it at all times. But I'd like to be able to take a back seat to it, where I just sort of oversee it. I get to do the cool stuff that I enjoy doing. A lot of my job is keeping the calendar full for the guys, right? Which that gets monotonous, and it's not my favorite part. I'll do it. I've been doing it. I'll do it till the day I don't have to do it. Um, but yeah, to be able to have enough freedom to take basically a back seat um, at the business, continue to build our little place into the paradise that we envisioned, the paradise I promised her. Um, and I don't know, just keep strengthening the family ties. Um, my circle just gets bigger and stronger. Um, and I guess relationships are really important to me, like human contact. I've actually heard somebody say that the opposite of active addiction is human connection. And so I don't know, maybe that's why maybe that's why I'm so tight with the family, but that's what's really important to me today. Like my birthday's coming up, next week. They're like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't care as long as you guys are there. I'm at that age and that stage of my life. If we can eat some food together, that's cool. Nothing fancy. I think I'm just want family, and that's really it. I don't have like a ton of friends. Like I have friends, but I don't like hang out with like I don't go to wherever with my boys or any of that type of stuff. I did have lunch with a really good friend of mine yesterday, but for the most part, I'm pretty outside of work. I'm pretty much just family and my digital friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think another part of that is, we talk about the community and all of that, and I can, you're a big instigator when it comes to any of our challenges. Sometimes I feel like, not threatened by any means, but very, very spoken to firmly about certain things in a good way, and it pushes me and it motivates me. And I can only imagine that when you're just walking around, you teach, you educate people, and looking back and hearing your story and thinking to myself, man, like 20 years ago, could you imagine if you could talk to Randall? What would you say to Randall 20 years ago?
Uh, you know, I don't know that anything changes somebody before they're ready. I feel like because people ask me all the time to talk to their kids that are struggling, and I'm like, I'll talk to them, but like they're not gonna stop until they're done, right? Like you have to reach a certain bottom, and so I don't know that I would have any like life changing from that part of my life. I probably would have started my business earlier. Um, if I could go back and start that, I probably wouldn't have wasted my time working for other people that I wasn't going to get anywhere with. Because I lost like 5 years to that. I'd be 5 years further. Um, but yeah, I really live by like we're a sum of all of our experiences. Um, I don't regret all that prison time. It made me, like I said, it made me hungry, right? And so I don't know that I'd really like want to change the trajectory at all, because life's pretty perfect now, and I think I had to go through what I had to go through to get what I have now. And so I guess maybe just keep your head up and stay strong, but like
Yeah.
good luck with that.
And I'll tell you what I've taken away from our time together today is like, you truly do not have to let your circumstance and your situation define you and your outcome, right? Like you can change and there is actual hope for that. And I think that you're living proof of that. And I think that that's fucking awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I remembered what I was going to say earlier when you were saying that the feelings,
Mm-hmm.
they say that the stories might be different, but the feelings behind them are the same. So maybe our stories aren't exactly, mirrored, but like those thoughts that you were talking about, having similar experiences and things being parallel, we all operate from the same place. So the feelings are the same, the stories are a little different.
Yeah. And I think something that I think is very important to me, and I can hear it in a lot of what you're saying is, and I keep bringing up the word community. We're called to serve. We're called to be in community. We're called to be with others, not be alone. And now that may not be everybody's purpose, what feels like it, but I think naturally as people, we thrive in environments like that, like affirmations and being with others. And yeah, I really, I don't know. I'm proud to know you. I think it's really cool to experience a little bit of Randall. And thank you for sharing what you did today.
Yeah, yeah, I'm grateful you guys asked me. I was really excited about it. Obviously, you're two of my people that I talk to the most and like my favorite people from Reliant. And so I was honored that you would even ask me. And I'm glad that I get a chance to kind of share my message. Um, Before we go, can I just one last thing? I'd be
Oh yeah.
remiss if we're talking about community and the people that I've met. Um, Steve is actually at fault for all the stuff that I've ever made us do in the challenges. I mean, that he made us do, but then he blames it on me. I didn't do any of it. Steve comes up with all that stuff, and
Fucking
honestly, I'm
Steve.
just a victim. Honestly, so
Steve, he's a frequent listener. So
yeah,
Steve, when
There
you're
you go.
listening to this, just know it's all your fault.
yeah.
That's funny. So, Randall, so before we part ways, what's a good way if any listeners want to maybe connect with you online, maybe follow your business, learn about that? What's your handle? What's a good place to follow you and connect?
Probably mostly Instagram.
Yep.
Our business is Urban Forestry of Tucson. And I think that's just what it is on Instagram. And
Yep.
then my personal handle is it Arblife AZ or is it AZ Arblife? I can't remember.
I think it.
Arblife, ARB.
I think it's ARB, so Arborist Arblife AZ. So
Awesome.
feel free to follow, especially if you have friends in common. I'll accept. I do deny a lot of people, but if you're like in our group,
If you're
well, you
cool.
get all
Yeah.
those weird ones, dude. But like,
Yeah.
if anybody that's related, like if I see anybody else from Reliant
Yeah.
following them or my friend, obviously I'm gonna
Yeah.
check. But
Yeah.
yeah, if it's recovery based or fitness based or whatever it is, I'm happy. Trees, if you're into trees, that's my deal too. So happy
Love it.
to happy to connect with you.
I love it. Well, Randall, thank you again. Everybody, we appreciate you being here today, learning a little bit about Randall, and hopefully you've learned as much as William and I just about how your circumstance, your situation does not have to define your end outcome, and that there is hope. So thank you for being here. We will talk to you next time. Go kick ass.
Thank you.